Thank you to Topaz Wolf for the generous donation on Patreon. If you would like to join them in their generosity, the link to my Patreon page is in the description.
Artemis snarled and swung her blade. Divine Smite! Damn. The earth shook violently as deafening thunder cut through the air. The dozens of stone elementals immediately shattered into a shower of pebbles from a single swing of Artemis' blade. The world faded away into a haze of white, filled with only the acrid smell of ozone and crackling electricity. Damn! This place got fucked up. The entrance wall of the fighting ring collapsed into a pile of rubble. Parts of the building were falling down in a rain of debris and dust. The crowd from the ring all ran outside, screaming in terror as they shielded their heads. Cole felt Sid's strong arms around his waist as the large badger held him protectively against his chest and carried him out of the ruined building. His ears were still ringing from the celestial blast.
But boss, are you okay? You didn't hit your head, did you? How many fingers am I holding up?
None. Your hands are on my ass right now. Sid yelped and dropped him like a hot potato. Cole's behind hit the floor with a painful thump. Ow! What was that for?
Sorry, I just panicked. Sorry for touching your butt.
Cole picked himself off the ground with a huff. Well, if you have the energy to freak out like this, I know you're all right too. He stared at the blushing He stared at the blushing badger slowly. Or the blushing bladger. Sid's shirt was peppered with holes. The skin on his back was angry with red scratches and cuts from where he shielded Cole from the falling debris. A flash of guilt burned into Cole's chest. He almost left the big guy behind. Behind them, Clyde climbed out of the rubble and stared at the destruction in shock.
My ring. My business.
More guilt fluttered through Cole as he gingerly approached his axe. He reached out and gently squeezed the tiger's hand. Hey, man, it's no big deal. Papa's a big fan of your work. He and Hamish can probably talk to a few folks and get your ring up and running again. Tiger continued staring at the collapsed building, his expression unmoving. Cole frowned and shuffled his feet uncomfortably. Clyde? Do you need a place to stay tonight? There's always room at the Bone Breakers if you want. Clyde sighed and quietly shook his head.
I think you've done enough.
Cole fell silent. I understand. I'll give you some space. He retreated back to Sid's side with an uncomfortable grimace. Sid glanced between the two in a mixture of confusion and worry.
Boss, is everything all right?
Sure. Though I wouldn't call today a great success. Ooh, Artemis suddenly rushed out of the collapsed building and glanced around frantically. Where did that mage go? I searched the entire building and could not find a trace of them. Cole and Sid exchanged surprised looks and scanned the large alleyway. The cloaked figure was nowhere to be found.
And maybe your big chosen one smiting vaporized them. That was one hell of a blast.
Artemis shook their head.
Nay, I doubt my divine smite is capable of that.
Well, the most logical explanation is that they escaped. They're a mage, after all. Probably used some sort of spell to teleport out of here before getting hit. They could be anywhere by now. Artemis dropped to her knees, utterly crestfallen. I failed. What will I tell Her Excellency? Hey, deep breaths. Don't go all panic attacky on us again. Cole patted her back with a sympathetic smile. Think positive. At least we recovered the crown itself. It's a few jewels to the royal prince, anyway. Artemis blinked and looked up optimistically. I've forgotten. Cole, do you still have one of the rubies? Oh, right. It should be here. Cole rummaged through his pockets and froze. Uh-oh. He grimaced and gave Artemy a sheepish shrug. I don't have it. That mage must have grabbed it out of my pocket while we were tussling on the floor. The hopeful glint in Artemy's eyes instantly vanished. She buried her face in her hands, head hung low in shame. My first day outside the church district has been an utter disaster. Her Excellency was right. I am a sham of a chosen one.
Hey now, don't beat yourself up too much. I mean, sure, you lost a few gems and collapsed the front of a building, but you saved the lives of everyone here. This place was an illegal operation anyway. More importantly, you and the boss saved me. That mind-controlling spell felt awful. I'm glad I got my wits about me again. I owe the two of you big time.
Cole looked away guiltily. Artemy caught the sight of his expression, but stayed silent. I am glad you're safe, Sir Sid. Sid flashed her an enthusiastic grin.
I can't believe I got rescued by the Creator's Chosen on my first day of work. Wait till Mom hears about this. It's amazing that I got to meet you today.
Artemy watched Sid's giddy laughter with a soft, tired smile.
You are too kind. I envy your optimism, Sir Sid.
Speaking of good things, let's talk about your pay for today, shall we?
Eh?
Hey, it's your first day of work as an adventurer. The best part of adventuring is getting paid. Cole opened up his small coin sack, stuffed to the brim with gambling money, and recovered the obsidian crown. Here's your crown, knighty. Cole turned towards Sid as he continued digging through his pouch. And for you, here's an even split of the winnings from the fighting ring. Not bad for a hard day's work, eh? Sid watched, stupefied, as Cole poured a large pile of coins into his hands. This was more than his family made in a week. Maybe he'll be able to take his parents on vacation, or at the very least give his mom a break from work. He finally did something worthwhile. Sid's grin widened as he gripped the coins tightly.
Did I do a good job today?
Of course! Couldn't have done it without you, buddy!
Really? You're not gonna let me go in a week like all my other bosses, will you?
Cole blinked in surprise. What? Why would I do that? You've been a great lackey. I don't tend to let go of good men. Keep up the good work and you'll become a great adventurer like Papa in no time. Sid felt his chest hurt from the sheer joy flooding his heart from his boss's words. Maybe he wasn't such a disappointing son after all. He let out a hearty laugh and swept Cole off his feet in a smothering hug.
Thank you so much for taking a chance on me, boss. I promise you won't regret it.
Hey, let me down, you big oaf. We haven't gotten to the point of where we're exchanging casual hugs yet. Sid's voice suddenly cracked and trembled as he held Cole close. Cole glanced up and froze. Oh no, don't give me that. I can't deal with crying people. Sid laughed again and wiped away the happy tears with his arm. Sorry for getting all sappy. It's just that I've been failing for so long in my life. You're the first person who's wanted me to stay. His warm hug around him tightened. Cole felt cold as the badger's joyous sniffling laughter reverberated through his chest. He tried his best to ignore the guilt pooling in the pit of his stomach and flashed Sid a half-hearted smile. Well, that concludes your first day of work. Meet me at the Bonebreakers Guild building tomorrow and we'll get you set up with some proper adventuring gear. Go home and get some rest, big guy. Sid finally let go of their hug and nodded excitedly.
Will do. Thank you again, boss.
Cole turned towards Artemy's sullen figure quietly. Oh, and you get a share of our winnings today too, of course.
For me?
Yeah. We couldn't have gotten out of this mess without you, after all. He opened up his coin sack and poured out a generous amount into her hands. Artemy's gaze was cautious and rigid.
Ah, an even split. How surprisingly fair.
Hey, listen. Thanks. Artemy looked down at the small hyena with a hint of confusion.
If I may ask, thanks for what?
Cole crossed his arms and avoided her gaze with an uncomfortable frown. You know, for stopping me. Artemy blinked in surprise. She regarded him with quiet curiosity.
You truly are a perplexing man, Collody Bonebreaker. I simply do not understand you.
Cole snapped up with a glare. What's there to understand? Not everyone gets to be a shining example of perfection, O chosen one. Some of us are born a little disappointing. Artemy returned his glare with a stern frown of her own.
I understand that feeling completely. But disappointing or not, we are still capable of making the right choices.
Cole rolled his eyes and stuffed his coin sack roughly into his pockets. Oh, would you have chosen to come out today if you knew that you'd fail so horribly? Artemy's shoulders stiffened. She stared down at the obsidian crown in her hands. Her grim face stared back in the reflections of the empty gem sockets. Sometimes it's best to stay in your lane when you know your own limits. Disappointment is all you'll find in the end. Cole sighed and dusted himself off. Anyway, it's getting dark. It's probably best if we headed home. He turned and waved his hand in farewell. I'll be seeing you around, chosen one. Damn. Artemy was left alone in front of the crumbling facade of the fighting ring entrance. She stared quietly at Cole's retreating figure.
I think you're wrong, Cole.
Damn. The City Watch and the church's Holy Knights appeared roughly an hour after the explosion at Clyde's fighting ring. All the residents of the ring had fled by the time the authorities arrived, including Clyde and Val. The Knights and City Watch led a thorough search of the ring and confiscated most of Clyde's black market goods, but the rubies were nowhere to be found. All traces of the cloaked mage had disappeared except for the scattered remains of broken stone from the destroyed stone elementals. Despite Artemy's insistence on helping them continue the search, the Holy Knights ordered her to return home. The City Watch gently reminded the Knights that Artemy and her friends were still wanted for driving a wagon through the front door of an arcane shop this morning, but the Knights waved it off and swiftly lifted the charges. And thus, so ends this adventuring party's hectic first day. Market District, Sparrow's Inn and Tavern. There's Sid coming home. Night had long fallen by the time Sid arrived home to Sparrow's Roost Inn and Tavern. Business had closed hours earlier. The tavern was quiet and the dining area devoid of customers. As Sid climbed the stairs toward his family's living quarters, he could hear his parents' usual squabbling echo through the narrow wooden hallway. With a soft smile, he made his way toward the door. The room was filled with the delicious smell of warm stew as a pot simmered over the stove. Rennet Strikewood doused the flames and carried the pot to the dinner table as his wife, Elia Strikewood, paced worriedly across the room.
Oh, honey, I'm sure a boy's doing fine. There's no need to fret.
Elia wrung her hands against her apron with great anxiety as she stared at the door.
It's so late. Why hasn't Sid come home yet? Oh, I knew we shouldn't have let him run off on that venturing party business. Who knows what kind of trouble he's gotten himself into?
Rennet chuckled and pulled a serving of cheesy garlic bread out of the oven. Oh, that sounds good right now. The sweet, mouth-watering scent made his stomach rumbled. with impatience.
Just watch. Sid's gonna walk through that door any minute now. He always shows up when dinner's ready.
Oh, but you should have seen him this morning. He was doing that thing again with the broom.
Any of boys sword forward fight with broomsticks, let the poor guy have a little fun. We probably should have a talk with him about that frog friend of his.
Elia grabbed a broom from the closet and brandished it in the air, mimicking her son's movements from this morning. Well, I suppose swinging this around is somewhat fun. Though play fighting with a broom won't help him much in a real fight. I just hope Sid remembers to stay safe. Maybe I should have given him the broom before he left. At least he wouldn't have been unarmed. Rennet nodded wisely as he finished setting up the dinner table.
Ah yes, the broomstick. Truly the deadliest weapon of an adventurer's arsenal.
Despite her worry, Elia let out a small laugh and waved the broom in her husband's direction. The way Sid swung this thing around would be plenty deadly. Oops! Elia lost her grip on the broom as she tripped forward. The broomstick sailed across the air in a graceful arc, right as the living room door swung open.
Mom, Dad, I'm home. Oh!
Sid stepped into the room, was immediately smacked across the face with a flying broomstick. Oh my goodness, Sid! I'm so glad you've made it home. Sid barely had a moment to recover before his parents flocked over him like doting mother hens.
Son, how's your first day adventuring go?
Ilya fussed over his ruffled clothes and crooked glasses while wearing her perpetually worried expression. Did you get anything to eat today, dear? Why, you're covered in scratches. You didn't get into any fights, did you? Sid chuckled and batted away her fussy hands.
Hey, slow down, Mom. Give me a chance to breathe.
Ilya crossed her arms with a huff. I was worried sick all day. You could have at least dropped by and told us where you were. As Ilya retreated to the dining table, Sid couldn't help but notice his mother limping slightly and wincing whenever she bent her spine too much. His chest lurched with worry. His father beckoned Sid to his seat with a grin and began serving out stew.
Eat up, you're probably starving after a working all day. How'd things go? You gotta tell us all about it.
Sid puffed out his chest proudly.
I'll have you know that the day went fantastically.
He dug out his coin sack and presented his day's earnings to his parents with a grin.
I'm finally a member of a proper adventuring party. And don't worry, I kept my promise and made some friends to team up with.
Ilya and Rennet's eyebrows rose with surprise. The two of them exchanged glances and nodded supportively.
Ho ho, my boy finally made some friends.
We're so happy for you. What kind of frogs are they, dear? Sid's jaws dropped for a moment before spluttering indignantly.
No, they're both real people.
Ilya and Rennet froze with surprise before instantly erupting in overjoyed shouts.
That's excellent news, son. Good for you.
Oh, thank goodness, real people. I'm so glad. Who are your new friends? Are they nice? Surely you invite them over sometime. We'd love to meet them.
You'll never believe who I ran into today.
Sid spent the rest of the night recounting his adventures to his excited and thrilled parents. Ilya hung onto every word, completely enraptured as he told his story. Rennet kept patting Sid on the shoulder with joyous laughter as he spoke. The stew was delicious as usual, but tonight it tastes exceptionally great. Sid's chest felt alight, with pride and satisfaction for the first time in as long as he could remember. Aww. Oh. Whose fallout are we getting this time? Oh, it's... Oh, God. The Marauders District Bonebreaker Mercenary Company Guild building. Papa, I'm home. As soon as Cole opened the door to the Bonebreaker Mercenary Guild, he was hit by uproarious laughter and drunken hollering. His father was drunkenly singing tavern songs with dozens of other mercenaries, his voice droning with a tipsy pitch. Meanwhile, Hamish was trying to do paperwork at the bar and was continuously interrupted by Marrow stealing kisses from him every few minutes. Hamish grumbled and pretended to be annoyed as he buried his face in his papers. Cole smiled and gently closed the door behind him. As soon as Marrow caught sight of him, he slammed his tankard of ale loudly onto the table with a jolly laugh. La la la!
Well, looky here, my darling boy is returned. How goes the first day back on the job?
Marrow's jovial voice boomed through the building with a deep rumble. Several of the mercenaries turned their heads and waved to Cole as he approached his father's table. Cole puffed out his chest and stood a little straighter. Do I ever disappoint? He tossed his coin sack under the bar with a loud thump. Not only did I complete a mission and bring home some loot, I formed my own little adventuring guild with 2 fresh recruits. One of those recruits might not be coming back, but still. In just our first day, we kicked ass, broke out of jail, defeated Val, the best fighter in your favorite fighting ring. You should have seen us, Papa! Marrow was absolutely beaming as he gave Cole a rough slap on the back.
That's my boy! My pride and joy, I knew you had it in you for greatness. One of these days you'll grow into an even better man than your papa here. Beat Val in his own little ring, you'll become a fine mercenary yet.
Marrow slung an armor on Cole's shoulders and pulled him close with a sly smirk.
Now tell me, during your first great big brawls today, did you fight fair?
Cole smirked back knowingly. Of course not. We bonebreakers fight to win! The room instantly burst with roars of drunken laughter and hollers of agreement.
Atta boy! You do your old man proud.
Cole's stomach felt fluttery as he drank in all the praise. Every one of Papa's words felt like a warm embrace in his heart. From his seat next to Marrow, Hamish puts down his pen and clears his throat loudly. How experienced are you new recruits? You should bring them over to the tavern.
It's a guild building!
Hamish rolled his eyes with a soft smile.
Guild Tavern. Your father and I would love to meet your new friends sometime.
Cole crossed his arms and shot him a dirty look. Nobody asked you, Hamish. The older hyena visibly stiffened and looked away. Marrow let out another jolly laugh and ruffled Cole's hair.
What, you scared we're gonna take your new lackeys from ya? Don't worry not, boy. Hamie is right. You should bring them over. I wanna personally see what they're made of. If they suck, I'll give them a good old bone breaker training regiment and whip them into shape. Nothing but the best for my darling son.
Actually, I was gonna ask you about this, Pop. Are you free at all tomorrow? One of my boys doesn't have any experience with a weapon. You think you could fit him with some equipment and give him a little training tomorrow?
Consider it done. I look forward to seeing what your men are made of.
Papa's enthusiasm is truly infectious. Cole couldn't help but smile at the sight of his father brimming with pride as he showed off his son's success to all the men of the mercenary guild. His approval filled Cole's chest with a warm sense of belonging. Oh, by the way, Papa, there's something I want to show you. Can I speak to you privately for a moment? Oh my god, he has the ruby. Marrow downed another goblet of ale and wiped his face with a smile.
Of course, I always have time to spare for you.
The drunken hollers of the mercenary men dimmed to muffled background noise as Cole led his father toward a quiet corner of the building. Marrow's steps wobbled with a hint of tipsiness, his face still plastered a jolly smile.
Well, son, what did you want to show me?
Cole turned his face to his father and took a deep, nervous breath. Well, I just wanted to say I really appreciated the new loot you gifted to me this morning. It means a lot that you'd support me in stuff other than the usual mercenary business. Marrow laughed and roughly tousled his hair again.
Nonsense! You're the son of marrow bone breaker. You deserve the best a father could give you.
Cole cleared his throat. And you deserve the best a son could give, too. I couldn't just accept your gift without giving something back, so, I got a little something for you. I knew it! I fucking called it! Cole reached into his pocket and pulled out a single glistening ruby. I fucking called it! He held it out to his father with trembling hands. Here you go. A one-of-a-kind gem for my best one-of-a-kind papa. Marrow's jaw fell agape in surprise. His expression soon melted into a warm, heartfelt smile. He kneeled down until he was at eye level with Cole and brushed his hands against the ruby in Cole's palms.
This is beautiful. You got this for me?
Cole nodded earnestly. Of course. Nothing but the best for my papa. Marrow barked out a hearty laugh as he pulled Cole close in a tight hug.
I assume this is the spoils of your first adventuring party efforts, isn't it? If so, you should keep it.
What? You mean you don't want it? Marrow shook his head with a smile.
Nay! I already have the greatest gift a father could ask for. A happy and loving son.
Cole bit his lip and stared down at the ruby in his hands quietly. You mean it, right? You're not just saying that because you're trying to be nice and supportive, are you?
I speak only the truth. No treasure in the world could compare to the sheer joy I feel right now. I love you so much, my darling son.
Cole's chest fluttered. I noticed his accent is getting thicker as I go along. Originally, there was, no accent. Now it's, barely understandable. Cole's chest fluttered with warmth again as he gazed up at his father's warm, prideful eyes. Thanks, Papa. I love you, too. Aww. Fucker, though. Fucking fuck. Well, let's see Artemis fall out. Here we go. Church District, Grand Cathedral. This is going to go poorly. Oh, God.
You what?
Bishop Katrina's shrill voice echoed through the Grand Cathedral white walls sharply. Artemis winced and continued to hang her head low in shame, unable to meet her mother's eyes. Arrested on your first day! Participating in an underground fighting ring? And worse yet, disobeying my order and then failing so utterly at the world's simplest mission! You are an utter disgrace to the church! Had I been a less patient and gentle bishop, you would have been thrown to the streets the moment you returned home! Artemis' shoulders shook as she squeezed her eyes shut. Deep breaths. Deep breaths. Mother, or rather Bishop Katrina, continued to pace and fume across the cathedral with absolute fury. That crown was part of the royal family's collections. It belonged to the late king, and was meant to be passed down to his son after his death. Do you know how utterly humiliating it was to tell the prince that my own daughter had lost it along with all of its jewels? Katrina let out a heavy sigh. Thankfully, His Highness is a patient man. When I reported this news, he simply laughed and said that it would may be a good learning experience for a like you. I have a theory that the prince is the mage that we dealt with. She turned towards Artemis with a snide snarl. Prince Cassius. Oh shit, Cassius. Prince Cassius has given you a mission. You have 1 year to find and recover the 4 missing rubies of his crown before his coronation ceremony. You will do well to mend your disgrace to this church. Artemis stood up straight and saluted stiffly. She blinked and did her best to ignore the tears that were welling up in her eyes. Steel your resolve. Thank you for this chance, Your Excellency. I will do my utmost to right my mistakes. Oh, you'll need to do better than your utmost, young lady. I don't believe you understand the gravity of your situation. Katrina crossed her arms and glared in disgust. Should you fail in your remission, The church will strip you of your title as the Creator's chosen. The air grew cold. Artemis felt all the air rush out of her lungs as the wave of panic and terror washed over her. What? What will I do without my duty as the Creator's chosen one? Your Excellency, I beg of you to reconsider. You can't possibly... An amused, predatory sneer spread across Bishop Katrina's face. It vaguely reminded Artemis of stray cats cheerfully playing with their food before consuming them. Oh, but I can. You are not officially acknowledged as the Creator's chosen until you are able to pull the Creator's holy blade from its resting place. Your current position and status holds little weight officially. Her sneer dissolved into a cruel chuckle. And you cannot even attempt the ceremony to retrieve the holy blade without the church's express permission. Seeing as I am the Grand Bishop of the church, I hold the right to strip you of your title and purpose. Artemis' heart pounded rapidly against her chest. Terror and dread gripped her mind as her breathing deteriorated into ragged hyperventilating. What would she possibly do without her duty? She had trained her entire life for this purpose. The thought of losing it all was a level of despair Artemis could scarcely comprehend. Her vision blurred and the room began to spin as her lungs screamed for air. A soft buzz suddenly echoed through the empty cathedral hall. Who might this be? Katrina sighed and fumbled about her robes and pulled out a small arcane crystal. With a tap, the crystal glowed with a soft golden hue. A familiar voice buzzed through the stone with a booming laugh. Hello? Can anyone hear me? At the sound of Knight Commander Grank's warm voice, Artemis snapped her head up. Air rushed through her lungs as her breathing suddenly felt easier. She trembled and attempted to hold back her tears. Yes, Knight Commander, this is Bishop Katrina speaking. Ah, I'm afraid I am an old bear. All these newfangled arcane crystals and speaking stones are an absolute hassle to figure out. It appears our beloved bishop has trouble with them as well, since I just overheard your entire conversation. Katrina's eyes widened in surprise, and her expression scrunched into a disgusted scowl. Artemis, I hope you're doing well. What a day, eh? I would be there with you right now, but I'm afraid I'm busy haggling with the city watch at the moment. Sure enough, arguing voices could be heard in the background of the call. This aggravating fella keeps screaming about how we shouldn't drop charges on a wanted exhibitionist hyena. Oh, I can't repeat the rest of this indecency. Grank laughed and cleared his throat. Anyway, back to business. Dear Bishop Katrina, I must ask you to kindly cease all this useless threatening to our Artemis. Sowing seeds of fear into her will not help the situation. Katrina let out a harsh hiss as she gripped the speaking stone tightly. She disobeyed orders! She made a fool of herself and the church! Misdemeanors must be disciplined! Grank's booming voice continued speaking as though he didn't hear a single word she just said. And you absolutely will not withhold Artemis' title from her. This is an order. His tone suddenly dipped into a low, dangerous rumble. History will not condemn the Creator's chosen for losing a lousy piece of jewelry. Young Artemis, while you have a long task ahead of you, do not be discouraged by this small shortcoming. You are dismissed. Go get some rest and worry about recovering these rubies tomorrow, after you're no longer exhausted from today's ordeals. Despite the fact that Grank could not see her, Artemis bowed her head deeply. Thank you, Knight Commander. I will not let you down again. Katrina let out a low scoff. Knight Commander Grank Stormborn. Jesus, with these names. You are the one who allowed her this mission despite my orders. Upon your head lies the consequences should she fail. Grank laughed cheerfully. I will happily take this wager. Oh, God. Artemy felt utterly exhausted in both body and spirit when she retreated to her small room. Her eyes could barely stay open, all the strength drained from her limbs. She collapsed into her lumpy bed with a deep sigh.
Some people are born a little disappointing.
Goal's previous words rang through her head as she squeezed her eyes shut.
That couldn't be true, could it?
But Artemy sighed again. After all the mishaps from today alone, she couldn't help but think there was a little truth to his words. She rolled over on her uncomfortably lumpy mattress and was abruptly met with the sound of crunching paper.
Huh?
She fumbled her hands across the mattress and retrieved a small piece of paper.
A letter?
Her heart skipped a beat as she instantly recognized Knight Commander Grank's messy handwriting. She quickly unfolded the paper with a small smile on her face in spite of her dreary mood.
Hello, my dear pupil. I apologize for being unable to meet you in person after your first mission outside of the church district, as I am busy organizing recovery teams for the royal family and sorting out this illegal fighting ring business. You deserve better than a dusty old letter with my atrocious handwriting scribbled across it.
Warmth fluttered across her chest and she let out a soft laugh.
Oh, Knight Commander.
I know you must be in a horrible state after the verbal beating your mother no doubt gave you. Do not listen to a single word of hers. You must be feeling terrible, but know that these feelings will pass. Failure is a part of life, and everything is a learning process. Though failure is a ruthless teacher, take this as an opportunity to improve. You will only grow better from here on. And look on the bright side. You finally experienced your first day outside the church district. Was it fun? Exciting? Surely it could not have been entirely bad. I wish to hear all about it once I've returned from my tasks. Prepare to tell the tales of your adventures when I return for our usual tea and cookies session. Did you make any good friends?
Artemy reached the end of Grank's letter, her smile fading. She folded it up and leaned her head back, staring quietly at the stone ceiling.
I don't know.
She closed her eyes and let the silence of her cold room wash over her.
Well, I suppose I did learn something new today. Knight Commander, have you ever heard of a gesture called a high five?
Aww. That's so sweet. Chapter 1. The Liar, the Commoner, and the Chosen One. End. End of Chapter 1. To be continued. Aw, that's lovely. I mean, not all of it was lovely. The abuse of Bishop is fucking hard, but Jesus, I always forget about this. Oh, crime in Italy. Yes, support Shirokoi on Patreon. The link to the Itch.io page for this visual novel is in the description, along with links to all my stuff, including my Patreon, if you're feeling generous and enjoyed what you listened to. But that is it for the Temptations Ballad update 0.1.4.1. Jesus Christ, what are numbers anymore? Let me know what you thought of this update in the comments down below. If you want to follow me on any of the other social media platforms, the links are all those in the description as well. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I have been the Trained Unprofessional, and you are not. Bye, everyone!